Okay, so a question that was asked is, how important is it for someone who's going through a kundalini awakening to have a regular meditation practice? And I would say it's very important. And it's very important for two reasons. So one reason is that when someone's going through a kundalini awakening, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things being cleared out, a lot of things being processed, a lot of things being released, especially on an emotional level. Now, if someone has a regular meditation practice, they'll be cultivating peace, they'll be cultivating stillness, they'll be cultivating equanimity, and they'll be cultivating inner silence. And when we're cultivating those things, it becomes much easier to be able to handle the ups and downs that go on with the kundalini awakening. Without those things present, it can be challenging. For some, it can be very challenging. So that's an extremely important reason to have a daily meditation practice. There is a second reason why it's very important, and that's because the process of kundalini clears out blockages and releases obstructions in the subtle nervous system. As these things are released, the body actually comes into a state of ecstasy. Now, ecstasy, it sounds amazing, and it is amazing. It feels like every cell of the body is dancing with joy. But it's not enlightenment. Okay, it's not the end of the spiritual journey. And the end of the spiritual journey comes when there's ecstasy present in the body and bliss. And there has to be bliss simultaneously. And bliss is something that's cultivated through meditation. So if we have a daily meditation practice cultivating bliss, the kundalini process cultivates ecstasy. When those two things are present at the same time, they actually merge. And the union of those two things is freedom, love, unity, and realization, self-realization. Sometimes these two things are referred to as Shiva and Shakti. Bliss is referred to as Shiva and ecstasy as Shakti. So if you hear about the union of Shiva and Shakti, that's what this is referring to. Now there's another practice that is also really important to have if you're going through a kundalini awakening. And that's a practice called Spinal Breathing Pranayama. So this is a particular form of pranayama. It works by visualizing a tube or a thread running from the root chakra up to the third eye, going up the inside of the spine, and then slowing the breath down, and then as we breathe, as we inhale, we follow this thread up with our attention to the third eye. With the exhalation, we follow the thread down with our attention to the root chakra. And I'll put a link below this video to a web page where you can see a full description of that practice. Now, the reason this is a really important practice for people to have if they're going through a kundalini awakening is because it purifies the central channel, which is called the Sushumna Nadi. And this is a very stable channel in the body. Now, you might have heard about different kinds of awakenings, different kinds of kundalini awakenings. Kundalini awakenings through the Vajra Nadi, through the Kshetrini Nadi, through the Ida Nadi or Pingala Nadi, through the Brahma Nadi even. So if you've heard about these things, what's happening is that Kundalini's awakening and it's rising up through a particular channel in the body. Sometimes you'll hear people say that they experienced a powerful spiraling movement inside their body as Kundalini was awakening, and that happens if Kundalini awakens through one of the side channels. The side channels spiral up around the central channel, coming to the third eye. Now, for the process to complete, the energy has to come into the central channel, into Sushumna Nadi, or at least into Sushumna Nadi for a considerable part of the journey. In the final stages, prana comes into the Brahma Nadi, up into the crown. But the practice of spinal breathing pranayama brings the energy into the central channel. So it means that the awakening becomes stable, it becomes centered, it becomes much more manageable. Once it's in the central channel, it's very easy to control the energy, and it makes the whole process much smoother. So having a daily meditation practice, really important for the points that I mentioned. Having a daily spinal breathing pranayama practice is really important for the points that I mentioned. And just to mention one more thing, if someone hasn't yet awakened kundalini, but if they're expecting that it may awaken in this lifetime, then developing these two practices beforehand is also a really good idea. Cultivating stillness and peace and equanimity before an awakening is very beneficial, and purifying the central channel before an awakening happens is also extremely beneficial. That way, when the awakening happens, it's much more likely to be a central channel awakening and not go off into one of the side channels or one of the dead-end channels. So that's my take on the two most important practices that anyone could have, either if they're going through a kundalini awakening or if they're preparing for one.